Exterior, residential sidewalk, late afternoon. Fade in on a sunny, quiet residential street. Not many cars driving down this street. The area looks like it was nice once, but it does have a couple of vacant lots. Sydney, a seemingly shy 16-year-old girl, walking down the sidewalk. She is timid and looks down at the ground as she walks forward. Cut to, farther up the street, two teenage boys, Kyle, a tough-looking 17-year-old, and Jason, a 16-year-old wannabe follower. They are having a conversation next to an unkept vacant lot. They are chatting when Kyle stops talking. He just noticed Sydney walking toward them.
I think we're going to have some fun today.
Kyle moves to the middle of the sidewalk. Jason, noticing Sydney, also moves towards the middle of the sidewalk next to him.
Right. I think it is.
Sydney gets closer to the boys. She tries to walk around the boys standing in her way and is stopped by Kyle.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
I have to go watch a dog. I need to get by.
She says this quietly, without looking up at the boys.
What dog?
Ms. Barker's dog.
Ha! That fat old dog? He is almost dead.
Well, that is great. We have a toll that has to be paid by everyone who crosses this spot on the sidewalk. And today, you get to pay that toll when you're done watching that mangy mutt.
Kyle gets even closer.
Is that going to be a problem?
Sydney steps to the side and quickly walks around the boys.
Remember, payment tonight.
Kyle looks up the street, past the vacant lot, and notices in the next house a dark figure moving back away from a window and the sheer curtains closing. He stares, but then shrugs it off. Cut to, Sydney finally gets to the house she was heading to, just past the long vacant lot. This is owned by Ms. Barker, an elderly woman who lives here alone with her dog, FIDO, an overweight, old dog. Exterior, Ms. Barker house, continuous. Sydney walks up to the house and rings the doorbell. No sound is heard, but then the door opens.
Hi, dear. Are you the one who is here to watch Fido?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. It's almost time for my appointment. Come in.
Ms. Barker opens the door and lets Sydney into her home. Interior, Ms. Barker house. As Sydney walks in, she looks around to see a nicely kept home. Off to one side in the living room, there is a dog laying on the couch who has barely lifted his head to see who has come in. Sydney begins to walk toward the couch.
Is this who I'm supposed to watch today?
Yes, this is Fido. I know he looks old and he doesn't move around a lot, but he can still take care of this old lady when I need him to.
How old is he?
Oh, I lost count. He's been watching after me for many, many years.
Sydney sits on the couch next to Fido and starts petting him. Fido shows that he likes the attention.
Well, he seems to like you. That is so good. Sometimes he doesn't always like the people I get to come over and watch him for my appointments. They apparently leave, and I never see them again.
Sydney barely notices this remark. Ms. Barker moves toward the table and reaches down and grabs her purse.
I better be going. I don't want to be late for my appointment.
Before she turns around to leave, she leans forward and looks directly at Sydney.
I think you should take Fido on a walk around 6:30. You just need to walk him to your house and back.
Sydney, scared look on her face, looks out the window down the street through the sheer curtains. She can still see the two boys in front of the vacant lot. This is noticed by Ms. Barker.
Don't worry about the local boys, young lady. Fido knows how to protect you.
Fido looks up and then just lays his heavy head back down, looking old and tired.
Yes, ma'am. I'll take Fido on a walk.
Perfect. That's all he needs tonight. I best be on my way. Feel free to kill time with the television until then.
Miss Barker walks briskly down the hall and exits the house through the back door. No other sound is made, except the flipping of the lock on the door. Cut to, Sydney is sitting on the couch and still petting Fido.
Well, Fido, I guess we're going to go on a walk later, even if I don't want to.
Interior, Ms. Barker house, evening. Watching TV, Sydney looks up at the clock, and it is now 6:30 p.m. The sun is no longer coming in the window, and it is now dark outside with the streetlights on. As she glances out, she no longer sees the boys down the street in front of the vacant lot. Fido gets off the couch and walks over to his leash. He obviously knows it is time for a walk.
Well, I guess you know it's time to walk also.
Sydney puts on Fido's leash, which seems to be longer than usual, and they walk out the front door. Exterior, Ms. Barker house, continuous. Sydney turns and locks the front door. She turns back around and starts down the path to the street. When she gets to the sidewalk, she stops and looks toward the vacant lot that is the way toward her house. She now sees at least one of the boys is standing there. It looks like the bigger, creepy bully. She begins to walk the opposite way down the sidewalk, away from her house and the bully. Fido does not go that way and starts to walk toward the boy and the vacant lot, firmly pulling Sydney with the leash.
Oh, okay, Fido. I guess I need to go that way, but I don't really want to.
They begin to walk down the sidewalk toward the vacant lot and Sydney's house. Kyle sees them coming and stands in the middle of the sidewalk, arms folded in front.
So glad you came back. I was getting lonely out here. I see you brought the old mutt with you. I told you it is the walking dead.
He looks around at the near-empty streets and then gets really close to Sydney. Abruptly, he grabs her under her arm and begins to pull her toward the big bushes in the empty lot.
Come on. The cost of you and the mutt walking past my toll area will be too much for you to afford now. I think it's time for you to pay me another way.
He is pulling her, and she struggles, but she doesn't scream out. He is very strong compared to her. She hangs on tightly to the leash. Fido just casually continues to follow, not a care in the world. Kyle stops dragging her as they get past a big bush that is hidden from the street, and he throws her on the ground. The streetlight barely shines into this area of the vacant lot.
Keep quiet or else it'll get worse for you.
Sydney looks over at Fido, who is just standing there. Kyle notices this as he starts to unbuckle his belt.
You think that old mutt is going to save you? I may end his misery after I'm done with you.
As he starts to pull down his pants, a large shadow appears behind him. Fido has grown into this large, horrible creature and grabs the boy by his neck. Kyle falls to the ground, wounded, bleeding, and in shock. Creature Fido forcibly drags the boy into the next area of bushes, seemingly to shield the carnage from Sydney. Sydney sits stunned at what is happening. She looks toward the area where Creature Fido has dragged the bully, but she can't really see anything. She realizes she is still hanging on to the leash, and it is violently moving back and forth. After some time, Fido, looking normal now, comes walking back to Sydney and nudges her. She snaps out of it and stands up. Sydney stares at Fido.
What are you, Fido?
Fido just looks up at her, as if he is satisfied.
Thank you, Fido. I think we need to get back now.
They quickly walk back toward the street and back to Ms. Barker's house. Exterior, Ms. Barker house, continuous. Sydney unlocks the door and walks inside. Fido walks in behind her. Interior, Ms. Barker house. The clock shows they have been gone for 30 minutes, although she didn't recognize it was that long. She pulls off Fido's leash and hangs it up. She walks over to the couch and plops down, still somewhat in shock. She sees Fido walk over to his side of the couch and drop something out of his mouth into a box. Sydney, puzzled, gets up and walks over to peer into the box. It is full of bloody fingers. A fresh one is lying on top, with blood still dripping out of a torn knuckle. Sydney slowly turns and sits back on the couch. She looks at Fido and stares for a moment before talking.
Well, Fido, I think you've taken care of a lot of bullies for people like me.
Just then, the back door opens and Ms. Barker walks in. She walks into the living room and drops her purse.
How did it go, dear? I hope you and Fido had a good walk tonight.
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Great. He does love his walks. Well, I think I owe you some money.
Ms. Barker walks over and retrieves some money from her purse. She walks over toward the door, and Sydney gets up to leave. As she makes it to the door, Ms. Barker hands her the money and leans in to speak.
I do hope you will come back next week when I have my next appointment.
Yes, ma'am. I would like that a lot.
Oh, good. Maybe the other boy will be standing by the vacant lot when you walk Fido again. Take care, dear.
The door closes. Fade to black. End.